All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. It's Thanksgiving, almost Thanksgiving time as we're recording this.
Yeah, it is.
And so I'm sure a lot of you are already pulling out those Thanksgiving decorations.
Yes.
I love the fall colors.
Yeah.
But, there's one decoration in particular that we're going to be diving into today. We got an email from a listener asking us to take a look at the Cornucopia.
Oh, interesting.
They specifically send us a little excerpt called The Cornucopia Symbol of Abundance in History.
Oh.
And I got to say, when I first saw this, okay, Thanksgiving decoration.
Right.
Big deal, right?
Sure.
But as I started looking into it, it turns out the Cornucopia is way more than just, Thanksgiving centerpiece.
It really is.
So I'm excited to dive into this with you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good one.
So, when we think about the Cornucopia, we think overflowing with fruits and vegetables.
Yes.
The bounty, of the harvest.
Absolutely.
But it turns out it has roots way back in ancient Greece.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So the Cornucopia is said to have originated from Greek mythology.
Okay.
And it's thought to be the horn of Amalthea.
Amalthea,
the goat who nurtured the god Zeus.
Hold on, a magical goat.
A magical goat.
So we're talking like, a supernatural goat with a magical horn.
That's right.
So what's so special about the horn? I mean, why not like a magical bowl or something,
That's a great question. And it really gets to the heart of what the Cornucopia represents.
Okay.
So the horn, unlike, say, a bowl, was a symbol of power and dominion in many ancient cultures.
Okay.
So think about it. Animal horns were used as weapons.
Right.
Trumpets to signal authority.
Uh-huh.
So the Cornucopia, being a horn filled with this endless bounty, suggests a sort of mastery over nature.
I see. So it's not just about having plenty, but about the power to provide that.
Exactly.
Okay. And that makes a lot of sense when we think about it, in the context of like ancient societies where survival was so dependent on
Absolutely.
the harvest and their ability to control nature.
It was essential.
So this idea of the cornucopia, the symbol of abundance, really takes hold in Roman culture too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, the Romans, they really embraced the cornucopia. It appears prominently in their art and mythology, often depicted with goddesses like Fortuna, who represents luck and fortune in Ceres, associated with agriculture and harvest.
So, I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, for an agrarian society like ancient Rome, the idea of abundance and a plentiful harvest,
right?
I mean, it's pretty central to their, way of life.
It was essential for their survival and prosperity.
But it also seems a little, idealistic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This idea of endless abundance, like we know that resources are finite.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Even back then.
Yeah.
So how do we reconcile that?
Well, I think it's important to remember that the cornucopia was never meant to be a literal representation of reality.
Oh.
Right? It's more about aspiration. A symbolic expression of the human desire for security and prosperity.
Okay, so like a hopeful symbol.
Yeah, a symbol of hope and optimism.
And I think that's something that, really resonates with people across cultures.
It does.
And even throughout time, right? Because here we are talking about it today.
Exactly. And, it's interesting you mentioned the Thanksgiving connection.
Right.
For many people, that's their first introduction to the cornucopia.
Yeah. I mean, I remember as a kid, we had this like plastic cornucopia on the table, and we'd fill it with like, gourds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think I really understood the symbolism behind it back then.
Right. Well, even in its simplified form, the cornucopia still carries that core meaning of a plentiful harvest, which is at the heart of Thanksgiving.
Okay. So Thanksgiving, it's a very, American holiday.
Yeah.
But are there similar symbols in other cultures around the world?
Absolutely. The cornucopia is not unique to the West.
Really?
You find variations of it in cultures across the globe, from the Mediterranean to the Americas, for example, in some Native American traditions. There are stories of these spirit horns that provide sustenance, very similar to the Greek myth of the cornucopia.
So it's interesting, right? Like, even though the specific stories and traditions might be different, this core idea of a vessel overflowing with nature's gifts.
Right.
And the gratitude associated with that.
Yeah.
It seems to be like a universal human concept.
Absolutely. I think it speaks to our deep connection with nature, our reliance on it for survival, and our appreciation for its abundance.
And that brings us back to that question that, our listener posed,
Yeah.
in a world that's increasingly aware of, environmental limits, does this message of endless abundance ring hollow?
That's a really important question to consider. And I think there are different ways to interpret the cornucopia in today's world.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, you could definitely see it as representing, a kind of naive optimism about resources.
Right.
Um, but on the other hand, maybe it can also be a reminder of the interconnectedness of humans and nature.
I like that. Yeah, and how our well-being depends on the health of the planet.
Right. And that, maybe instead of just expecting endless abundance, we should be thinking about how we can ensure a sustainable cornucopia for future generations.
Absolutely. How can we be responsible stewards of the bounty we do have?
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So yeah, the next time you see a cornucopia, don't just see a decoration. Think about what it represents. It's a symbol that's resonated with humanity for centuries.
It has.
And it prompts us to reflect on our relationship with nature, abundance, and our own role in ensuring a sustainable future.
Well said.
So until next time, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.